what is Detox with Deep Talks. So, as I mentioned before, it's a platform, it's an initiative, more or less, trying to connect, entrepreneurs, change makers, and experts with students, aspiring entrepreneurs. So, what we have found is, that in this, glimmering, in this, world of social media, where everyone is posting about, their success stories, about, the achievements, we thought, like, why don't we, put about, like, post about our failures, about our struggles. So, we took this initiative in order, to for people, especially students, NTU students, to connect them with successful people and to know about their journey, about their ups and downs, so that they can understand that failure is not an opposite of success, but it is a part of success. So that's kind of the agenda of this initiative, and this is episode number 3, for us. So it's this is again very early, this initiative we started last week only. So this is episode number 3, and we are really honored to have you here, Jamie. I'm Siddharth, and with me is Aditya. So we'll be moderating our session today, and as I mentioned, we'll be recording the session, and we'll make sure that we can communicate this message, to more and more students and to more and more members of our community, right? So once again, Jamie, thanks for your time, and a warm welcome to the Blossoms family.
Thank you. Thanks for having me today.
Okay, thank you, Siddharth. I'll just give a small introduction of Ms. Jamie. Ms. Jamie is the co-founder of The Kind Friend, a wellness company that aims to help people live a more mindful life through kindness by offering well-being journals and mindful workshops. And she has been awarded with great achievement awards like the 30 Under 30 Forbes Award, Anthill Young Entrepreneur Award, and so on. I would like to pass on to Ms. Jamie to talk more about her journey and her experience so far with entrepreneurship and so on.
So how would you like me to start? Like right from the start? So right now, currently, I'm Jamie, and I'm the co-founder of The Kind Friend. If you were to ask me this time last year, what do you think you'll be doing right now? I never thought that a hobby would turn into a business within such a short period of time. So initially, it started out just a side hobby, and so our intention for the Kind Friend Instagram account, it started out as an IG account, and the idea was quite simple. We just wanted to make the world a little bit kinder. Like, especially during this year, wouldn't we all want to live in a world that's a little bit more positive, a little bit more kind? So every day we will just post a very simple kindness quote centered around positivity and humanity. And we were really surprised at how quickly our account grew within a very short period of time. Not just about the follower numbers. I think numbers is not important. It's more about engagement. But at the same time, Coca-Cola even reached out to our account and labeled The Kind Friend as one of the top positivity accounts to follow for 2020. And through that experience, we started to receive thousands and thousands of emails, comments, and direct messages. And that's when I usually try to respond to everyone's message, because I feel like we wouldn't exist without our community. And so I started to pattern match. And what I found was it doesn't matter if you're a student, a professional, an artist, a parent, athlete, we all experience the same thing in life. We're all very different, but we all very much the same at the same time. We all want to understand how we can live a meaningful life and how we can cope with our anxiety and stress. So, growing up, I grew up writing in journals, and journal really helped me to regulate my emotions, to connect within myself, as well as manifest all the goals that I want into reality. So I wonder if the product journal will resonate with our community. And the beauty of, having like more than 50,000 followers within 10 months is that you can do a lot of surveys on your Instagram story. And so I started to do a lot of surveys, and I found that there was a really strong product market fit. So essentially, we co-created our first product with our community. We asked them, if we were to create a journal, what colors would you like to see? What kind of templates would you like to see inside the journal? And even like, would you like the journal to be hardcover or soft cover? Every little detail we co-created with our advocates with our community. And I think that's also a testimonial why our journals were sold out within 20 days after the launch. So last year we actually had nothing to sell for Christmas. And yeah, so it's kind of where I am at the moment. I've been doing this full time for 13 months now, and never would I thought that I would turn, a small hobby into a full-time business.
That's an amazing journey, especially within such a short period of time. I think the way as you mentioned about the product market fit, getting feedback from your IG account. I think that's great ways in which especially young entrepreneurs should approach things, because a lot of times people students and myself too, we are thinking of engineering a solution even if there is not a problem, right? So that's definitely one there. So Jamie, talking about journaling and talking about introspection, I think this is one thing that people of my age, students, are not kind of not much involved into, or they don't kind of they don't do it. So what's your opinion on how journaling is also important, for not just elder people, not just for working people, but also for students.
Yeah, I know I'm here to talk about journaling. It is a product that we're selling, but I don't want to say journaling is for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
However, I do want to say reflection is for everyone.
Mm.
It is through reflection that you'll be able to connect with yourself and really understand what your values are, and use that as a North Star to guide all the decisions that you're making in your life. And why I'm so passionate about journaling is because I started journaling since I was 12. So kind of how it got started, it was quite innocent. My family immigrated to Australia when I was about 11. And when I moved into a new country, I couldn't speak a word in English. Usually, I'm extremely extroverted. If I were to do a personality test, it showed that I'm 86% extroverted.
Oh.
But when I moved to a new country, I couldn't speak English. I didn't know how to make friends. And on top of all that new stimulation, I was also trying to cope with my parents' divorce. So before I knew what hit me, I became moody, distracted. I was definitely not the person that I wanted to be. And during that time, I'm so grateful that my mom actually took me to see a therapist, which I know is not a norm, especially coming from an Asian family. A lot of times I've heard so many stories where the parents would just say to the kids, just go to sleep, go to bed, the next morning you'll be fine. But it was through my therapy sessions that my therapist taught me the power of journaling. She told me it's not just great for your mental health. When you write down all your worries, what's bothering you, it's kind of giving your brain a reset button. I don't know how many tabs you have right now on your laptop, but when I'm working, I have like over 12 tabs opening on my laptop. But when you write down all these worries, all these problems that you're experiencing, it's kind of like closing all the tabs that you have. And when you do that, it also helps you to sleep better at night, which is so important for your nerve function and your immune system. So initially, journaling was a way for me to regulate my emotions so that I'm not becoming victims to my emotions. But then when I hit university, I started my first business when I was 21. Journaling also becomes a tool that allows me to manifest everything I want into reality. I think there's something so powerful about writing down. It doesn't have to be journaling, but just writing down your goals. It motivates you to want to achieve it even more, and it gives you a lot of clarity in terms of where you want to be, say in next 5 years time, in next 10 years time. And then right now, journaling for this year throughout COVID, it's been a tool to help me to cultivate gratitude into my daily routine. I think having that gratitude mindset really help you to, I don't know, when you focus on the good gets better. Even though COVID has been so hard for many, many people, but I think gratefully in a way that I was able to shift my mindset to focus on the good, and rather than spending most of my day to focus on the negative things.
Yeah. So maybe like that's right. Like moving from the negative part to the positive part, using a medium, and your medium turned out to be journalism in this case. That sounds very interesting. Like it sounds very interesting. Like anyone out there, like in the times of COVID right now, I think people can use this approach or whichever suits them better. But any method of writing would be quite convenient for a person and quite handy as well, I would say. Maybe like moving on, we would like to know how was there's a firm decision you made from transition from a corporate job to entrepreneurship, right? Moving to a startup. How was that transition period, and how did you make a decision to move towards a startup, leaving your safe job, maybe?
It was a very easy decision for me, I have to
Oh,
say. A lot of people ask me that question. It's a great question.
okay.
And for me, you talk about product market fit. So the Kind Friend is my third business. And the mistake that I've made with my first business is that I jump into the water with both feet without testing anything. So the fact that, why we created, before we launched the Kind Friend into a business, we actually created a landing page. So it's kind of like your Kickstarter campaign. We have no product. I work with the designer, created all the mock-up images, and then within, I think less than 3 weeks, almost 4,000 people sign up wanting to buy the journal. And I have nothing, like I have no inventory, I have no product. And I literally took that landing page and showed my ex-manager and said, hey, I'm resigning. I feel like that's actually give me a validation that people want to purchase the journal. People want this product. And that also gave me the confidence to actually launch this. I'm like, 4,000 people wanting to buy the journal. That's actually a very decent revenue for me to kick off and turn this hobby into a business. Yeah, and another thing is, I think sometimes you can read as much, you can done enough research, but you also need to listen to your gut. We have gut feeling for a reason. And I just found that I get so excited just visualizing the potential of the Kind Friend that I'm so excited. I just wasn't be able to sleep. I have all this vision, I have all these different ideas. Even when we went to New York last year, I was looking at all these amazing direct to consumer brands from the United States. And I was like telling myself, I can totally build a brand like that. So I think that inner voice was always in me, even though I was doing really well in my full-time job, but I just couldn't ignore that voice anymore. And yeah, so launch a landing page, got some validation, and within a very short period of time, turn a company into a business.
I think, when I talk about when I had a discussion, with some other entrepreneurs, one mistake, they said that they made is, that they spent a lot of money, in building a product. And, we should, show this interview to them, the approach that, you took in first, validating the, hypotheses that you guys had, using a landing page. I think that that's not just, saves a lot of money, but also, helps you to validate a lot of your ideas. So I think this is a great approach. Because like one thing that entrepreneurs always complain about is money, but there is always a way in which we can that we can basically test the the idea. And I think your way was really unique for the Kind Friend.
I think I learned from my mistakes. Like similar to what you say, I think first time founder focus too much about getting the product right. But then second time founder, they focus on distribution channel. They focus on getting the money in and build a sustainable business. So like when I started my first business, when I was still a uni student, I was so obsessed in getting the product right. And also during that time, I think I was trying to build a product that I want. And with the Kind Friend, I've been journaling, but it doesn't mean that the way I journal fits every single person or fits our community. So I wanted to make sure so my goal, I want to create something that outlasts me. And that means I really have to listen to our community. I have to listen to the people and really understand what exactly are they looking for, rather than creating things to solve my own problem.
So moving on, with so you mentioned about mistakes. Let's we can dive deep into mistakes. Because one of the agendas of this talk is to know more about your struggles, ups and downs. So Jamie, if looking back, maybe 1 year, 2 years into your journey, what were the challenge? Like what was one or maybe two big setbacks or challenges that you faced, and the approach that you took to overcome those. What would it be?
I think I think as humans, we can be our worst enemy. Like a lot of things, external pressure, the unknowns, I'm okay with that. But I think sometimes I can be so harsh on myself. Even last week, right, we only have 2 weeks left for 2020. And
Yeah.
I was just chatting to my friends and I'm like, I don't feel I've done enough. I don't think I'm good enough. We're constantly having these thoughts in our head. And I really had to snap out of it. And I think journaling also helped me to reframe my mindset. Like, how can sometimes you don't have mentors around you. During COVID, you might not have your mentors, your friends, your spouse, your partners, or your families around you.
Mm.
How can you build yourself up and become the best coach you can ever have? So that's something that I'm learning. And I think in my early 20s, I spent too much time in trying to get external validation. So I was chasing, the worldly view of success, the numbers, the metrics. And I literally spent 4 years doing that with my first business. And what happened was after the business failed, and my mom asked me, without the title of an entrepreneur, without your business, who are you as Jamie? And I couldn't answer that question. Sometimes we place such a strong emphasis on what you do in terms of your career, but not enough time, or we're not making enough time to really ask ourselves, what are my values? And who am I without all those career title? And what is it that you want? And what does success mean to you? I feel like success should means different things to everyone. And just because your definition of success is this doesn't mean that that's my definition of success. So after the first business failed, I literally spent 2 months, and I'm lucky in a way that my family was really supportive. I spent 2 months just like having that stillness and kind of reflected back on my journey in terms of understanding what exactly went wrong
Mhm.
throughout my first venture. And that helped me to really gain self-awareness. And that also helped me to know, okay, if I were to start another business, what would I do differently?
I personally, completely agree, with your point that sometimes, this, worldly vision of success, we start to associate ourselves, with those titles. But if we don't have those titles, who are we? I think, this is, a great point, which I can definitely connect to. If not this, who am I as a person? Like
Yeah, and I
everyone.
think, you started this for, you mentioned student entrepreneurs, right? And I read this report, it says 49% of entrepreneurs experience mental disability.
Mm.
It's not a sexy job. You talk about having the freedom and you're your own boss. It's not. You wouldn't be able to pay yourself, say, for the first 2 years. And you can be, you have the title of chief, like, CEO, but you literally chief everything officer. You have to do everything, even the things that you hate, you still have to do it
Yeah.
because you don't have the money to hire. You just
Mm.
have to learn everything. And at the same time, right, sometimes there are many days you won't be able to sleep. Like, I'm just going to be so realistic, because there are things that will keep you up at night. You'll be thinking about, do I have the runway for next month? Do I have the money to pay my staff? Um, yeah, it is. And sometimes it can be a really lonely journey. When I was running my first business, I'll be out with my friends. Physically, I wasn't alone, but my friends would talk about 9 to 5 job. They would talk about their studies, but I wanted to talk about the impact that I wanted to create. So at the same time, physically, I'm not alone, but mentally, I feel so lonely because I'm the only person who's taking this route. I think entrepreneurship is quite popular right now with young people, but
Mhm.
back then, I'm like, no one's doing it. And I feel like I was the only person who's doing it within my social circle.
Mhm.
And, they love you, but it doesn't mean that they can understand the journey that you're going through.
Yeah. And as you mentioned about, the negative, things that, things will keep you up at night. So what you do during those, times? Journaling.
I journal, but I also feel like, there's this quote, I think I can't remember the exact phrase, but who you are is based on the 5 people that you're surrounding yourself with. And I'm just lucky enough that I have really supportive network around me. I started during that time, I started to attend network events, and I built a group of friends who are also running their own businesses. so that they can be there to motivate me, even though our business is in completely different industry. But just having that support network group, I think is really important. And another thing is, apart from journaling, you have to look after your physical health. Like your health, without health, you can't do anything. It doesn't matter if you have a big vision, a big mission, you will not be able to achieve it. Health is wealth. So I didn't understand that, I was eating on instant noodles. I didn't go to the gym. I didn't exercise for more than 2 years because I feel like every single cent should be invested back into my business. And I feel like going to the gym, that's a waste of time. Like every moment, every free time that I have should also be invested back into the business. And I think in our society, there's a delusion that in order for you to succeed, you need to have a high level of energy, a low need for sleep, and the drive that seems far beyond ordinary people. Entrepreneurs, they're not superheroes, they're still human beings. So I really learned that the hard way with my first business. Like my health suffered for a period of time because I didn't look after it, not just physically, but also I think I was just so anxious, so stressed as well.
Maybe just out of curiosity, Miss Jamie, may I know what was your first business about? Like, just curious.
It was an education business. So I was a teacher by trade. And one thing that really frustrated me, so as a teacher, while you're doing education degree, you have to shadow a teacher around. So it was for primary school students. And in front of my eyes, I saw that kids were given pocket money at, say, on average age 7 in Australia. So I grew up in Sydney. And I was quite shocked, right? Like you wouldn't give someone a car key without teaching them how to drive. Why are we giving young people money without educating them the value of a dollar? And I'm like, we go through our schoolings without learning financial literacy education.
Yeah.
And because I was raised by a single mom, so that was instilled in me from a very young age. But when I looked at the curriculum, I was like, I want to be a teacher, but why is that not being taught within school? So what happened was, I created my own financial literacy education curriculum. And I went around my school, pitched to all the different principals, and I got rejected by every single person. And I think when you're young, you're just so naive. I was like, just because they rejected me doesn't mean that I can't do it myself. So I put in all my savings, I think about $20,000 AUD, and literally rented a space and started my coaching school. And my goal was to instill financial literacy education in young people.
That sounds interesting. Maybe like I was just kind of thinking like, do you still have this vision of spreading financial literacy among people, or are you trying to achieve it via other mediums like journalism or so, or?
It's funny, like a lot of parents, even say like my ex-colleagues so I used to work for Carousel, they asked me if I can restart my first business. I think timing is also important. Back then when I started, it's just not as prevalent as now. Now with like some markets are going through another financial crisis, and people are starting to realize the importance of financial literacy education. And when you talk about money, it's not just about saving, it's about how do you allocate your assets. So I feel like if I were to start again, the traction might be stronger, but at the same time, if I were to be honest, I was extremely burnt out from my first business. Even now, when I think of it, it's like the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. Even compared to the kind friend, I'm like, no, the first business was way harder. I was a teacher. I knew nothing about the business world. Even learning about how to create a business name, how to set up like a business account, like a bank account, how to read financials and financial modeling. Everything I had to learn from the ground up because I just didn't have any experience. It was the toughest thing, but it's also incredibly rewarding. Like I wouldn't be who I am today without it.
So like maybe like, so what was the one thing which kept you going at that time in your first business and right now? So like the one fuel which kept you running?
That you make a difference in someone's life. I think, throughout all 3 different ventures, so my first 2 businesses were education. The first one's about financial literacy education. The second one is more about entrepreneurship. I think for me, what really drives me is always around the the area of that I can be of value to someone else's lives. And I think that's what really motivates me. And I really believe that when you run a business, passion, purpose, and profit, they can coexist at the same time. And I've experienced that with all three businesses, even though say the first one might not be successful from the worldly sense, but to me, I feel like I've learned so much and I got to impact so many people's lives. And to me, that was success. To me, that was incredibly rewarding.
Yeah. Like, I think giving back to the society, and, doing what you love is, very, important, and, something that, young students do resonate with, right? Because, I've heard like almost every one of my friend, say, I'm figuring out, what I love. I am figuring out, my passion. So, what's your take on it, Jamie? That, because there is always a trade-off, right? Following passion versus security versus, hedging your risks. So, how do you,
Yeah,
see that?
I used to give the advice of following your passion, but not till my younger sister came to me one day. I was running my first business and my younger sister came to me and she just looked so sad. And she said to me, Jamie, you always knew you're going to start your own business, but I don't know what my passion is. And I found that it actually shocked me. It made me realize that maybe not everyone will be able to kind of discover what their passion is. Or for some people, they might be multi-passionate. So for example, I'm incredibly curious. So just because I run a business doesn't mean that journaling is my only passion.
Yeah.
I love dancing on the side. I love fitness. I do painting. I have so many different passions. So I feel like that advice is flawed in so many ways. Instead of saying following your passion, I would rephrase it to follow your curiosity, because it is through following your curiosity that you are able to discover what you love. So you have to keep an open-minded, like for example, right, my brother-in-law loves photography and he does that as a side gig. But if he never had that experience of taking photos and using a camera and be open-minded with that experience, he would never be able to discover that passion. So for me, I'm like, it's okay if you don't know what your passions are. And it's okay if you figure that out when you're 40 or when you're 50. There's no rush. Like everyone's timeline is different.
Yeah.
But what I urge you is to just be open-minded and say yes to new opportunities when you're young, because you'll never know what that route may lead you. And I think sometimes, I mentor students on the side. Sometimes I give them so much pressure thinking that I have to discover my passion at the age of 19, at the age of 20. And I'm like, your passion might change too. I used to be so passionate about education. I'm still passionate about education and empowering others. But at the same time, like recently, I discovered that I love dancing. It's something that I never realized about myself before.
Just to add on that, students, especially, student entrepreneurs, they say that I'm not able to, get an idea from where the heck I should get an idea. So, maybe, you can tell us more about, your journey, especially, with the three startup experience that you had. So, how to basically keep an open mind, and how to, get startup ideas.
I think even before that, one thing that you need to know is what are your values. So for example, my sister, she's doing really, really well in her career, but she's amazing at being like an entrepreneur within an organization. Like for her, taking that risk of putting her money and running a business, it's just kind of not for her. But for me, right, my three key values: adventures, curiosity, gratitude. And those three things are my North Star. And I found that a lot of time I made decisions based on that. And that's also the fact that I'm willing to move from Sydney to Singapore to start my career here, because I'm extremely curious and I love adventure. But for some other people, they might not like that, ambiguity, or they might not like the unknown, and they might like structure. So I think before you even think about running your own business, you really need to understand what are your key values. And when you realize your key values, sometimes entrepreneurship is not for you, and that's fine. But even that, I feel like entrepreneurship is a mindset, it's not a job title.
Yeah.
Like everyone can have that entrepreneurial mindset, that growth mindset to kind of experiment, test, and pivot your idea. It doesn't mean that you have to run a business.
The first question which I'd like to ask is like earlier you have mentioned that you have gone through the struggle of like you will be harsh about yourself and you feel like you have low self-esteem and you don't feel like what you have done is enough, right? So how do you get over it? Like I don't think, I mean, I have tried personally journaling by myself, but I really found it difficult to continue over a period of time. Like, I don't know how to analyze. Like, it's like people say journaling is what you think and you just put it on paper. But what I feel is more important is writing information is just having data. But how you analyze your data and get what you want is actually journaling. So I actually want to know more about that thought process because I've tried journaling, but it really didn't work out for me. Like I have no idea what I'm doing. Like so after a period of time, I even stopped.
Yeah, so I have a few methods when I journal. So one is that I track my habits. I feel like you are who you are. It's because of habits that you are making every single day. And your habit builds your character, and eventually your character builds your legacy. So, you talk about data, like I love having data. So I will track my habits in terms of how many deals did I close this month? How many gratitude cards I've sent out, because I also love to make a habit of saying thank you to the people around me. Even during COVID, how many meaningful conversation that I've had through Zoom, as well as through other social media platforms. And through that also give me enough data to understand, okay, so for example, if I close 10 deals this month, can I increase that next month? And journaling is a great way for me to be able to reflect on what I've done and how I can make myself better. So I have a theme in my life. It's called personal disruption. And that's something I'm still a work in progress, something that I'm still learning, because I found that sometimes I spend so much time trying to compete against others. I think sometimes ego does get in the way. But for me, personal disruption is just reminding myself that I want to be better than who I was yesterday. So I'm in competition with no one but myself. So if yesterday, I can close 2 deals, can I increase that? Yeah, so I also do monthly reflection. So I also try to celebrate the little small wins in life. I feel like I don't want to just enjoy the mountaintop view, but I want to enjoy the view along the way. And because that's all something I've learned with my first business, I was so focusing on the next goal, the next targets, and make the next metric to hit. So when I do my monthly reflection, I will write down what are the small wins for this month, what are some of the lessons that I will want to take from say November till December, and what does success look like for me for next month. So that's my monthly reflection. I also write an annual, I think I'm so extreme. I also write an annual report on myself every year. So I feel like, when you run a business, you have monthly review, you have quarterly targets. How come we never apply that into our daily lives? When you run your business, you have so much clarity. You build an entire financial model. You know exactly where you want to be this time next year on the business sense. But imagine apply the exact same method into your daily lives. I feel like you will have so much more clarity into who you are, where you want to be, say by the end of next month or by the end of next year. So that's something that I've been doing and I found incredibly helpful. And you can also have stakeholders, right? As a business, you have stakeholders. Why not have stakeholders in your life, and that they will give you performance review to help you to become a better human being?
Yeah, that was pretty insightful. Thanks. Yeah, and I have one more question as well. Like I really love the quote which you just mentioned. Like it's not just following your passion because I'm a very curious person, and until now, like every semester, I kind of overload myself with a lot of activities, but a lot of times I'll not be able to justify too many of them. So I'm kind of like that much curious and taking up different roles, and actually, I'm not sure how to figure out. Like after that, you mentioned everything you fix or you proceed with further, like how you narrow down after finding your curiosity. to one particular task or probably two, three more. So is that by finding your value? Is it right?
Sorry, what was the question? So I heard
Yeah, like
about finding your values.
yeah, like you told as a curious person, like you venture into different activities and different fields, let's say, but you kind of narrow down. Like right now, you say like first business you chose to proceed with the financial literacy, and right now you're proceeding with the sharing kindness with the people, right? So that you have narrowed it out to this particular fact just because of your values.
Yeah, I feel like it's kind of like building a house, right? For me, my values should be the foundation of everything that I do. It's kind of like self care. If I don't know myself, how can I add value to other people? If I don't disrupt myself on a daily basis, how can I, improve other people's life or inspire or educate others? So for me, I always feel like the starting point should be yourself. If you know your values, then because for my first business, I was literally was saying yes to everything. I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but once you know your values, you have that clarity and understand, okay, what opportunities would you like to take and what opportunity you would be happy to say no to. Um, and wouldn't we all want to live a life that's authentically ourselves? And yeah, so that's kind of like building a house. Value is my foundation, and I have a theme which is personal disruption. And after that, I also make sure I have goals for different buckets. So I don't want to just have goals for my career. I found that especially in this region, it seems like career is everything to everyone. Without career, I'm not like there's nothing. So I had different buckets. I have career goals, I have charity goals, I have health goals, financial goals, travel goals even. And I will do that on a yearly basis, and I will review that on a quarterly basis to see if I'm on track or not.
And to add on, like is journaling the way which through which you have discovered your values, or how did you discover your core values to be in the first place?
It's not, I would say more than just journaling, it was through reflection. I feel like if you're always running, if you're always moving without reflection and having that stillness, you wouldn't be able to kind of learn from your experiences. And it's kind of like having that data point, right? If you work in a tech company, you run campaigns and you need to reflect back about your campaign and see what works, what kind of data you can get. So you apply that same method. I'm like, okay, if we're always hitting a goal, what about every quarterly you stop and reflect and see, why did I make that decision? Or what is it about that experience really excite me? And based on the decisions that you've made, you can start to see patterns. So for me, I'm like, whoa, I get really excited about the unknown. Like I'm not afraid of the unknown. And then I'm so curious about so many different things. I might be reading about Neuralink, about Elon Musk today. The next day I might be reading about Bitcoin. And then the next day I might be reading about mental health. And I was just like, whoa, I actually have so many I'm just curious about a lot of different topics rather than just one. And then I found that a lot of my journal entries, so even like the text message I sent to my friends, was centered around gratitude. And I'm like, okay, it seems like something that I do without even thinking, just consistently. And I feel like showing gratitude also bring a lot of joy and happiness into my life. And another one, adventure. I see life as like a big sport. Like I love sport, like I feel like it's like a big game. And you're just learning as you go, you make mistakes and then you learn from that. Yeah, so I think it's more than just journaling, but journaling gave me a lot of data point. But more so, it's more about reflection. It's kind of like driving a car, right? You will eventually run out of fuel if you don't stop and recharge.
Yeah, it shows like a consistent recording of yourself is gathering information about yourself, and then you just analyze those information to get the best about yourself. Like currently we just do about all the external things about career, our business, and so, but then yourself is a key spotlight which we miss out.
Yeah, and it's so amazing where you can see how you've evolved. So all my journal entries in high school were about boys. It's like this boy, that boy. And then when I went into university, it was about the business that I want to build. And then after that, it was about the person that I wanted to become. And like, you can see how much you've shifted from a young age till now, and you literally tracking your evolution and really seeing the person that you're becoming today. And I think, I don't have kids right now, but if one day, if I have a child, I also want to show them how I overcome adversity. And I want to use my journals as a way to pay it forward. I want my kids to understand, how did I overcome struggles? How did I launch my first business? How did I test the market idea? And through that, they will hopefully get to know me even on a more intimate level as well.
I just have a small question for you. Like, I just want to know your opinion. Like, during the COVID time, there's a lot of negativity around, right? On social media, on every other platform possible, even the circumstances around. How do you overcome, or how do you see a person can overcome those situations, the negativity around? Like, what's your opinion on that?
I can only say what I do to myself, because everyone's different. Everyone's schedule, everyone's temperament, everyone's personality is different to me. But I'm extremely mindful in terms of the content that I consume. I feel like you are not just who you surround yourself with. You are also the content that you're consuming. So if you're consuming all this negative information, the data will also pick it up because of algorithm, right? They will continue to feed you the similar information, and your entire feed will just be filled up with all that information. And for me, I'm quite mindful. Like, I don't follow account that will trigger me or that will bring negative energy into my life. And also, I feel like gratitude also helped me to reframe my mindset. If I were to present you with a blank piece of paper with a black dot on it, most people would say, oh, I can see a black dot on that piece of paper. And that's kind of like negativity. If you always focus on the negative things, you'll spend your entire life looking at that black dot. But if you can start cultivating gratitude and infuse that into your daily routine, you'll start to see all the white spaces around that black dot. And that's what I want to see in my life. I don't want to just see the black dot. I want to see the white space. And so I just make sure, I think that's why the gratitude journaling is so important to me. And there's so much science behind gratitude as well. I wanted to be able to notice the little things in my life that I think during COVID, I think we take so many things for granted, right? Going out with friends, 10 friends, going to Avenue, going to Marquee, going out clubbing, dancing. We're just taking so many things for granted until the whole world's been grounded. That's when you realize, wow, there's so many little things in my lives. I haven't seen my mom this entire year, which is crazy. Like, usually I will spend Christmas either in Taiwan or in Australia. But I'm also grateful in a way that we have Netflix, we have Spotify. Right now we're talking on Zoom. Can you imagine if you travel back in time into 1900s? There's no internet, there's no entertainment. And during that time, right, one of the worst virus actually hit during World War II. So there's this book called The Great Epidemic, and I read it during COVID. So not only did the world suffer from one of the worst virus, they also trying to cope with World War II. And there's no internet. You couldn't even connect with any of your loved ones. So when I was reading that book, I'm just like, oh my God, I'm so thankful that I'm in 2020. Like, I have internet. I can still connect with my family from Sydney and from Taiwan. And that just really shifted my perspective. And I also think that the people around me, they're all incredibly positive, but not in a fantasy way. I think sometimes people can be so positive, but they're not objective. So I also use this WHOOP method. It's a scientific method to help you to be positive, but also in a very objective way. So WHOOP stands for wish, outcome, obstacle, and plan. So often we plan for the best scenario, but we don't plan for the worst scenario. So Jeff Bezos, the founder of Amazon, he's really big on that. You don't just plan for the best, but you also create solution for the worst scenario. So I do that on a daily basis when it comes to decision making. So if today I'm launching a campaign, what would be the worst outcome for this campaign, and how can I create solutions around it? So not only can I stay positive, but I also have backup plans.
I think this year has been transforming for a lot of people. Especially the little things that we, as mentioned about we took for granted, like partying with friends, going for dinner, meeting family. So I think this
Yeah.
year, although in social media there is a lot of hatred for 2020, people wants to get this year as over as soon as possible. But I think this year has taught us a lot of things that otherwise we couldn't. Basically, it's kind of reflection, and we are thankful that this COVID pandemic transformed laid some positive impact in our lives, not just the negative ones. So I think
Yeah, sometimes I feel like this sounds so, maybe I need to find a better term for this, but I feel like it's not a bad thing to have a COVID day once a year for the world. You know, like the climate change has improved this year, and like the spotlight has shined on healthcare workers, but shouldn't we show appreciation to them all the time, not just during COVID? And I think people are also doing introspection, really ask themselves meaningful questions. What does success mean to me? And is my career giving me enough meaning and giving me enough joy? And I feel like people wouldn't be able to ask themselves those big questions without COVID. So in a way, personally for me, so just over the weekend, I was reflecting back on my 2020. I found that COVID has made me a better person in many, many different ways. But at the same time, I'm so grateful I'm in Singapore. It's incredibly safe. Our medical supplies and our hospitals are just incredible. It's like one of the best in the world.
Yeah.
And in some other country, then they might not be as lucky. So I think there's still a lot for us to be thankful for, even during challenging situations.
Yeah, absolutely. And we are thankful to you for coming, sharing your time, sharing your opinions and sharing your journey with us. So we are really honored and thankful to you. Maybe one last thing before we end. Just any one message to our students, our student entrepreneurs, aspiring entrepreneurs. Any one message you want to share with them? Sure.
Okay, so how I was saying, I was reflecting back about my 2020, and this is what I've learned this year. I think there are so many things that's completely outside of your control, but there are only two things you can control. One is your preparation for the unknown. So, your preparation for uncertainties and for things that may not go your way. And the second thing that you have control over is how you respond to that uncertainty. If you really think about it, there's just like only two things you can control in life.
Yeah.
It's how you prepare and how you respond.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing for me, I feel like intention is everything. This year, I become much more intentional in terms of how I want to lead my life. And intentional, it comes with not just offline, but also online, because this year we all spend so much of our time online, right?
Yeah.
So for me, I'm like, the text message that I send out, the email that I send out, I really realize that words carry power. And a lot of communication becomes very text heavy, like words can start a war between two nations, or it can destroy someone's dream. So I become more mindful and intentional in everything that I do. And I feel like intention is everything. And that also attracts the type of energy that you want into your life.
I think, that was really, inspiring. I could, connect, to everything that you said. And, thanks a lot, Jamie, for this beautiful, beautiful, deep conversation that we had. We'll make sure, that we can, convert this into, a video, as well as, blogs, and, post it, to basically spread the message to as many students and, community members. But once again, it was really insightful. It was really heart touching on whatever topics that we discussed, from entrepreneurship to journaling, to 2020 review. And I think the best part was when you mentioned about the business analogy, that we can apply it in our lives. Basically, the way we do quarterly reviews, and we are so planned for doing a business, but we are not for ourselves. So I think this is one way, especially students at this year early age, we can all definitely try to implement that. So that was great.
Also, like being a business analytics student right now, I'm always concerned about the data outside, but then for a second I realized I should be concerned about my own data, like understanding myself. I think that was a very interesting aspect as well. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Jamie. Maybe we can once we are done with the editing and all, we can send you the video, send you the blog, and you can also share it with your community. We'll also share it with NTU community and the other community. Yeah.
Great. Well, thank you so much for giving me a platform to share, and definitely keep in touch. And if anyone have any more questions, I'm pretty active on LinkedIn. Feel free to add me on LinkedIn as well.
Sure, Jamie. We'll be in touch. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Bye.
everyone. Bye. Thank you.
Thank you.